Are we ready?
Mhm.
We've met before, so I know what your gorgeous face looks like, so everyone can see it now. I'll just visualize you in the background.
Aw.
So thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started, what are you enjoying to drink on Wine with Rita?
It is so I'm based on the Gold Coast
Yeah.
and it has been raining and miserable here for several
Oh,
days. So whilst we still have the warmish weather, I've actually gone with a beautiful Barossa Shiraz, one of my favourites, a
yum.
St. Hugo's.
Yum.
And if you haven't tried it, it is really,
No.
really gorgeous. St. Hugo's. Otherwise, I would have typically gone for a Vas Felix, but here we go.
Oh, beautiful.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, I have my classic white. I'm not a fan of a red, but Danny Rosso gave me this one, Very Con, 2021 Chardonnay. So, be enjoying that tonight with you. Um,
Fantastic.
so I'll just give everyone a backstory of how I came across you. Now, I remember in COVID, I was watching like the current affair or Today Tonight, and I was just in awe of a story of this remarkable mum raising three children with severe disabilities, not only in COVID, but also with the difficulties she may have at home. And I was watching her thinking, she just does it so well. How does she do it? Like, she just got it all under control and she's managing it and doing all this amazing advocacy in the background. Um, and so then obviously I headhunted you and found you on Dr. Golly. And I was like, you know what? I want to reach out to her and see if she'd like to be a participant on Wine with Weeder, and we're here.
We are. We are here. And yeah, you're right. It was a current affair.
Yeah.
They came out and did a piece which really resonated with so many Australian families. We had,
Mm,
I think, in the end, hundreds of thousands of sort of views and comments, and it just resonated, and I think a lot of people really ultimately felt comforted that
mm,
in these lockdown situations throughout, throughout not just Australia but the world, there were
mm,
other families like mine, and that they just felt that connection, which was really,
mm.
really nice.
Which is really
Yeah.
what many people are seeking, that connection and familiarity with it, someone else.
Just validation of, I'm going through this too. I'm not the only one. And, and I think a lot of people reached out to me and a lot of people connected
Mm,
and asked questions. And I think some of the strategies that work for me will work for some, won't work for others. Those
mm,
strategies might work in 3 years' time, but not right now. And
mm,
we just share the knowledge and we just share the information, and it kind of takes just that one story or that one piece that makes you feel seen and heard, even if
it
it's
just,
not you in that
it just
in that light.
takes the bond. So, do you want to give everyone a rundown of your gorgeous family? I know everyone knows you have three boys, but if you're happy to talk about their age, their diagnosis, and then we'll dive deeper into your intervention journey.
Sure, sure. So, yes, I have three gorgeous little boys. Oliver is 10, Joshy is 9, and Tyler is 8.
Wow,
So
it's
I
close
had,
age.
yeah, my older two are 11 months apart,
Mhm.
and Tyler was conceived about 3 months after my second. So I had
Wow,
three children under 2.5,
wow.
and um, and my boys all basically have the same well, the two primary diagnoses are the same. So they have severe intellectual disabilities,
Hmm.
and they are autistic, and they are
Hmm.
level 3s.
Okay.
So,
Oh, yeah. Mm.
and then my older two have a range of comorbidities. So AFRID, which is avoidance food restrictive intake disorder,
Hmm.
PICA, which is the consumption of inedible objects, sensory processing
Mm.
disorders, ADHD. There's a combination of
Mm.
different things. And my older two boys also have eating disorders on completely opposite scales. So Oliver can consume food more than The Rock in one setting, you know, like he can eat more than a grown man in one setting and still be ravenous. And there's no connectivity between his gut and his brain function to say, I'm full. And when you combine pica and sensory processing and all of those things, there's that constant need for food. We've had him assessed for Prader-Willi syndrome. For anyone who's out there who's saying, has she checked it? I've checked it. He doesn't have it. And whereas Joshua is the polar opposite, Joshua with his severe AFRID, Joshy eats now two foods. He eats saladas and he eats, oh, there's balloons. There's saladas and he eats pastizzi. And pastizzi, I'm Maltese heritage, so pastizzi is basically ricotta inside of pastry, and it's baked.
They're delicious,
and that's
for sure.
Yeah, they are, but they're very fattening.
It's very buttery.
Butter, pastry, and that's all he has. He's never had fruit, vegetables. He's never had an egg. He's never had any type of protein, whether it's chicken, fish, meat. So in order to sustain his development and healthy growth and healthy brain functionality and give him the best shot in life, I put him on a range of different vitamins, which some I import from the United States, and some I just get locally, because he stopped the formula. He used to have a toddler formula, an A2 toddler formula, but he's just in the last couple of weeks, he's just pushing it away, just saying, no, I'm done.
I guess many parents struggle with feeding their children their vegetables and their fruit in an optimal way. And I can just only imagine how challenging it would have been for you just to try and introduce and navigate that with him. That's a lot of difficulties for you. Let's talk about your eldest, your 10-year-old. What signs did you notice when you were like, something's just not right, I need to go down the pediatrician path? What were your steps and how did you support yourself in that way?
So Oliver's development was what you would class as neurotypical up until around that 12 to 18 month mark. And so he was pointing at objects, he was giving really wonderful eye contact, he was ahead of his milestones, so he was crawling and walking. He was walking at 10 months. Mama, dada, we could feed him pasta and vegetables and red meats, and so he was really on a neurotypical style of journey, if you like. And then around that 12-month mark, it was his birthday, and it was insanely overwhelming, and he screamed and screamed and screamed. We had to take him out of the party. And then when it came down to about 5 or 6 people, he was settled and he was calm. And so from there, we started to notice the regression. And Oliver was definitely a regressive person, and he still is to this day. So
when you say he regressed, did he stop producing some babble forms, or did he just not use any verbal communication at that point?
It just slowly started to stop. The eye contact stopped. The pointing at objects stopped. The mum, dad, the beginnings of babbling, it all started to stop. He stopped using toys in their functional ways. So he stopped getting a car and rolling it down the table, and he started flipping it over and just, in a very OCD way, started
Yeah.
to spin the wheels, spin the wheels, spin the wheels, spin the wheels. And then we started to notice, and I didn't understand at the time, the stimming, the sensory input, which he was getting very excited about. And the hands started, and the stimming started when he would get the sensory output from spinning the wheels. And so it took me a little while longer to come to terms with things, and I mean it took me a while. He was my first. I also had Joshua, who was born at 11 months when Oliver was 11 months. So I also had a newborn to deal with. And I started to feel very judged, and I started to feel very guilty about the fact that he wasn't meeting developmental milestones. And I used to say to my family and to certain people, give him space. Not everybody develops at the same rate. He might just be a little bit of a late bloomer. Just let the kid grow. Let him have some fun and let him have some space. And so, yeah. And, you know, and then the questions started, and then people started getting a little bit nervous as to how to approach me about certain things, you know. And so, you know, questions came about, well, can he hear? And as a child, my eardrums had closed, and so I had to have grommets put in my ear when I was a little kid. And I went, okay, well, that's fair enough, because Mum had that. And so we went, and sure enough, he needed grommets put in, and he had large adenoids. And so we sort of started down the path. Getting from the path to the diagnoses for Oliver as my first was way too long. So we went to the GP, who gave us a referral. We got a referral to the public hospital system.
Were you still based in Sydney then? Or were you in Queensland?
Yeah, Sydney. And then it took just close to 18 months for him to be seen. And I didn't know at the time that I could have gone private. Now, at that time, I probably still couldn't have afforded $3,000 to go private to have
how
him
much it
assessed.
is by paediatrician? 3,000.
It depends where you go. It depends where you go. So some people now, because Oliver is now 10 and a half,
10.
a lot has
NDIS
changed.
wasn't around when he was younger, no.
A lot has changed in that time. So he was one of, he did get NDIS when he was 4, but he got a $9,000 plan at the time.
Was that Faxia at the time?
No, NDIS.
Oh, it was an NDIS,
Yeah. But I didn't realise that I could have privatised the process, which would have got him earlier intervention. Absolutely.
So he
And as we
got
all know,
diagnosed just before, sorry to interrupt, he got diagnosed, he saw a paediatrician around his 3rd birthday then.
So he wasn't diagnosed by a ped. He was diagnosed at the hospital by 4 different disciplines, psychologists, there was an OT in there, and yes,
the child developmental unit,
pediatric,
something like that.
We were at Nepean.
Okay.
We're at Nepean.
It's like a unit,
Yeah, and it was horrendous. And the assessment was over 3.5 hours for a 3-year-old little boy. We were in a tiny little shoebox of an office, and they had to check and cross their standardized forms, which made me very upset. And that's part of the process. But they were asking him to do tasks which were outlandish. Oliver is non-verbal, he's non-speaking. And they were saying to him, here's 2 pictures, say the word ball, say the word bat. And I'm like, he doesn't talk. Why putting this pressure on this poor kid, and it was not a really comforting environment for him or for us as first-time parents. And then basically at the end of it, they went out of the room, had a big conversation, came back, gave me a piece of paper and said, your son is autistic, and here are a bunch of phone numbers, and thank you, see you later.
Oh,
And
that is just so overwhelming. Like, just to
it
hear
was,
your son's probably in a state of distress with being in that room for such a short period of time, firstly, and then to hear an official diagnosis, but so quickly without looking at him in a holistic manner and asking different allied health professionals over time. As a parent, that wouldn't be a pleasant thing to hear.
it was just so clinical.
Mm,
There was nothing about it that was human. And
mm,
um, and I think, you know, when we're talking about children and when we're talking about any kind of diagnostic criteria that a clinician has to provide to a parent, it really should be done in such a sensitive manner. And it wasn't handled very well.
mm.
So much so that when Joshua got diagnosed,
Yeah, did you
I
take a
knew
different path for
Joshua.
that? Yeah.
I knew Joshua was autistic from birth. In
Okay.
hindsight, in
Okay.
hindsight, he
And what made you
was,
realize that? Yeah.
from the moment he was born in the hospital,
Hmm.
the other babies crying, the beeping of the nurses' stations, his ears, he just couldn't handle it, and then the noise, and he would cry and cry and cry and cry, the poor little darling. And
Mm,
he didn't try any kind of solids until he was 9 months.
yeah.
You know, the 4-month-old mushy baby food. He wouldn't try anything. He just had aversions and sensory
Mm,
issues literally from day one. But with him, he had the benefit of secondhand speech pathology, secondhand OT, because the speechies and OTs would come to our house.
yeah.
We would learn the strategies as parents, and we
Yeah.
would implement them with Joshua and then Tyler anyway. So
Yeah.
we had our charts, our first and thens, and and
Mm,
we had our visual boards, and okay, well, here's your toys and here's your music and here's your bubbles, and
mm.
which one would you like for, and we've finished this task. So he had all of the benefits of all of that, and I just, because I had such a horrible experience the first time round, I literally waited until I had to register him for school and he required the paperwork
To have an
to get him
official
done.
diagnosis. So
Yeah.
then your second child's Tyler, isn't it?
So Oliver's
Oliver,
eldest,
then
Joshua's
Josh, then
middle,
Tyler.
and
Yeah.
little T is my baby.
Little two.
Yeah.
And so what age did you diagnose Josh?
5.
5. Okay.
Last minute before school. I
And
knew. I
but
knew. I just didn't want to hear the words out loud. I couldn't
mm,
emotionally
I,
bring myself to
yeah,
hear the words.
yeah. And do you feel because of that he wasn't able to access as much services because he didn't have that diagnosis, or were you just using the services that your elder Oliver was accessing either way?
No. We got him NDIS funding, and we
Because he's
got,
early childhood, yeah,
yeah, we got,
ECEI, yeah,
yeah, correct. And so where we were in the
okay,
Lower Blue Mountains,
yeah,
we had, so it's just on the other side, Emu Plains. And
yeah,
so in Lapston, there was this incredible daycare that
mm,
had an early intervention program,
yeah,
and they would only accept 5 children, and my boys were thankfully
kind of,
accepted into the program, and it was exceptional. So he had that, but then we also got him NDIS, and so he had his own separate funding.
yes, I
And
get that, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
I can't see you, but yeah, you continue.
that's it. Oh, you poor thing,
I
you
can't
can't
see
see
you.
me.
Yes, I'm just looking at. I can't see your face, but I'm sure everyone watching can see both of us. So I'm just going off your tone of voice before I can continue the next question.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Look, I mean, I can talk about my babies, you know, till I'm exhausted and falling asleep on the floor. You know, they're
Yeah.
my and same with Tyler. So what we ended up doing as far as the second and third diagnoses, we were still in Sydney,
Mm.
and they wanted again. They wanted over $3,000, and then they wanted to do it across 4 different
Mhm.
appointments, and then they wanted 6 to 8 weeks to write the report.
That's
And I was like,
true.
not going to happen. And I
Mm.
rang and rang and rang. So I rang from Campbelltown all the way through to wherever. I rang Cronulla Way. Like, I rang everywhere I could in the circumference, and I just couldn't get anywhere. And
Mm.
then in the end, I started ringing the Gold Coast,
Okay.
and I found a psychologist, and he was like, yeah, no problem. Come here. It was a 90-minute appointment. It was done on Medicare. It was $600. I got $525 back.
Wow.
And I flew the children one at a time, just the younger two, flew up, stayed the night,
Mhm.
and then had some fun, and then flew back. So I did one on the Tuesday and the second
Mhm.
one on the Thursday. And I can tell you it doesn't cost
No,
$3,000 and
it doesn't.
require an 8-week writing of report. If you could
Mm.
see my children, if you didn't know as a professional straight away that they were on the autism spectrum, that
Mm.
doesn't require 4 appointments. And,
Mm.
but I shouldn't, knock the procedure. Everybody has, the DSM-5 that they need to follow, and there are certain
Mm.
rules and regulations in which they do it. I just find it from a parental point of view, I find it incredibly frustrating. Um, but yeah, that's what we did. And then can you please send us the details? Yes, it
Yeah.
is the Southport Psychology and Psychiatry, Southport Psychology TC Clinic. My doctor is Dr. Chris Weaver.
And just
I can,
Just
I
to add,
can,
just to add clarity for everyone watching now, to have your child diagnosed with autism or another sort of disability, myself as a speech pathologist, we cannot do that. It has to be through a pediatrician or a psychologist. So I guess when your child is presenting signs of autism or even isn't communicating, speech pathologists are normally the first point of call for many parents. And then we always encourage go on the waiting list for a pediatrician or a psychologist so we can further investigate it. But in the meantime, we always suggest start therapy to see if the child is responsive to treatment, and then we can document like a therapy progress report. Well, this child presented with XYZ when we initially met the child, and after 3 months of therapy, the child can now do XYZ, however our concerns are, blah, 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 blah. And I guess by doing that, you are not just disregarding the child straight away, you are trialing therapy and really supporting their capacity. So when they meet the pediatrician, they've got a holistic picture rather than that once-off appointment.
yeah, that's right. And
Yeah,
you don't, as long as you can get supporting documentation.
yeah,
So that can come from the GP, the
mm.
pediatrician. It can come from your babysitter if your child is in daycare or if
Daycare is a
they're
big
in
one.
school.
Yeah, a daycare again.
Absolutely, they can all write you supporting documentation. And one of the most
Support it.
powerful things that you can do, even if you're in the NDIS and even if you're trying to get your child supported through the scheme, is to
Mm.
write what they call a carer's statement.
Yeah.
Now, a carer's statement is something that you write from your eyes and how your child's behaviours
Mm.
affect the family dynamic, how it affects them at home, the
Mhm.
safety, whether it's medicines, whether it's knives, whether it's absconding. You really have to explain how that child impacts you, how it impacts you personally. Do you sleep? Do you have high levels of stress? Are you starting to get depressed? Is your marriage, or if you have a partner, is that starting to break down? Why? You know, and the sad thing about it is you have to really get yourself into a mental place in order to be able to be very vulnerable to write these things, because they're not nice. You're not painting your child in a nice way. You're painting them, sadly, in their most vulnerable moments where they are, you know, doing the most
behaviours.
behaviours.
Communication, yeah. It's
Yeah,
good that you
and
say that, because I always encourage, as a mum myself, when we're describing our child, we're describing them the best light that we can. And so we always tend to brush off something that we see as typical or appropriate for the child, but really it's a concern that we need to document. And I always encourage parents, don't sugarcoat it, just say it as it is, because the more real you are of what reality is, it helps your child access more support to the best that we can.
absolutely. And it's not nice to have to
No.
write about your child in that way, but you
Mm.
have to, because one, they do get the support that they require, and most importantly, early intervention is so critical.
For sure.
It is
Yeah.
so critical. And even if your child is a little bit older, even if your child is in their teenage years, it doesn't matter. Intervention is intervention. But you know, it's I found my son in the chest freezer. I bought a chest freezer. I found him inside the chest freezer because his pica, again, is the consumption of inedible objects, is for frozen things. He'll eat raw chicken. He'll eat raw.
Wow. Can I
And
ask,
he's just
Kathrine,
ice.
how did you, I'm just visualizing your son in a freezer and he's eating food that you and I won't eat. What's in your mind when you see this? It's like, how do I get the support so he's not at risk of getting sick and not at risk of harming himself? Like, how did you navigate that?
It's just him
Yeah.
first. What is the
Yeah.
best for him? How do
Mm.
I keep him safe?
Mm.
So nothing else matters.
Mm.
Literally nothing else matters. My babies come first.
Yeah.
And so, okay, we found him in the chest freezer. He was in there, one leg over, one leg, like he doesn't get
Just
that far. I'm on my kids,
That's like
you
me in the
know?
freezer eating ice cream.
Yeah. But he, so the first thing we did is we went and got a padlock.
Okay.
So now we've got a padlock with a code on it.
Mm.
You know, we've got padlocks on lots of different things, and that upset the NDIS because they said that that's restrictive practices.
Yeah.
I said, well, no, one, he has an eating disorder, and two, I can't find him inside a chest freezer, so it's safety first. And in those scenarios, again, I know what's best for my child,
Anyone's just a child. Yeah,
and
absolutely. Absolutely.
and that's it. You know, I've got locks on gates; they can't get out because I have a runner. My middle son is a runner,
Mm-hmm.
and he will abscond anytime, anywhere, any place, and he can sprint as fast as Usain Bolt when he wants to go.
Yeah.
He can be 100 meters down the road in honestly 10 seconds flat. He's just so, you know, and as you get further along in your journey, you learn your kids.
Yeah.
They learn you. They start to mature. And yes, there are always going to be surprises because we are always growing and learning and developing and changing. But there's a level of maturity now at 10, 9, and 8 that they've got. And I'm lucky that my youngest is now starting to communicate. So, and his cognitive awareness is very superior. And
So
he now knows
when you
as
said
a bubba,
yeah, sorry,
he now
Catherine, when
knows
you
as a
said
bubba, yeah,
no,
go
no,
for it.
You said now that you're lucky, your youngest is able to communicate. Do you mean because the load of you trying to navigate what your child is trying to tell you has reduced, or is he able to support you with the other children to express what they want to say?
It's a combination. So absolutely, he now has the ability to express what his needs are, how
Mm,
he's feeling. He used to have meltdowns that would last anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half,
mm,
like to the point of
mm,
kicking and screaming and punching. And I would just sit in the room with him, no matter how he felt, and let him know that he was safe, that I
mm,
loved him, and
yeah.
that I wasn't going to leave. But those meltdowns were incredibly frustrating for him because he couldn't verbalize
Mm,
why he was upset. And so
that's right.
now with the communication, being able to talk, we can now talk through some of his
Mm,
frustrations and anger.
mm,
It doesn't mean that the kid doesn't still get angry. Of course he does. We're emotional
mm,
beings, but I can
mm,
talk him through it now. And
mm.
whereas the other two have been learning, they started on
Yeah,
LAMP.
yeah,
Um, but now they moved to Prolo Quo to Go, and they've been learning
yeah.
Prolo Quo for probably 3 or 4 years, and they still can't do basic comms on
Okay.
there. So,
Is it because they find it challenging, or it's hard to use the device on an everyday scale?
so I have a 10-inch iPad that is screwed onto my fridge,
Mm-hmm.
and it's locked on Prolo. So if they
Mm-hmm.
want or need anything, the first thing we do is we take them to the fridge, to
Mm,
Prolo, and we start with I want, and
mm-hmm.
we start to go through. Are you
Yeah.
hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you need a nappy?
Mm,
Do and we start to sort of navigate what it might be. So,
yeah.
and then they've got their own personal devices which have their voice,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been working with this for I don't know years and
Yeah.
years. It's just not clicking for them, and
Yeah.
it's not to say that it won't at some point,
Mm.
but it just doesn't click for them right now.
But as a speech therapist, we always encourage don't give up, because it doesn't hinder their ability to verbally communicate. It's an easier way for them to express themselves because the visuals are there, and you're using something that's highly functional, using it on the fridge, which will also make it a highly repetitive task for them to use their communication too.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Mm,
we do speech therapy several times a week. And then in school holidays, I do it
mm.
5 times a week. I basically do it every day.
Wow.
So they've had the intensity of speech, and I'll never
Yeah.
stop because you just don't know. I've heard the stories of
Mm,
they were doing it for 9 years, and then all of a sudden it clicked for them, and everything that they'd learned was there.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah, never give up. So I'm really interested. So you've had your children diagnosed and you're still in Sydney, and then you went to Queensland to that psychologist or psychiatrist there. What made you do a interstate shift to move to Queensland? What was your driving factor?
my boys were on 15 different wait lists for 18
Um,
months. We couldn't get them any intervention. We couldn't get them speech. We couldn't get them
so long.
OT, just the basic stuff for 18 months. We lost 18 months. And then when I started doing my homework on the GC, the therapy interventions here are out of this world.
They went, yeah.
We do trampoline therapy. They do gymnastics therapy,
Mm,
dancing therapy, sailing, sailability.
mm,
There's equine therapy, so horse riding.
I can get.
And that's all outside of your traditional speech and
Yeah.
OT and psychology and my boys are water babies.
Mm,
So the weather is just
that's
so
it.
much nicer. They're in the
Yeah.
pool, the
Mm.
beach, and we've been here 6 years and I'll never come back.
You never come back to Sydney.
No.
Um, yeah. Okay. Um, And with all of this information, I guess, how did you cope? What services did you access, and how did you and your husband together to support each other to get through day by day?
Look, that's a really loaded and interesting question. It's a
There's
roller
no straight
coaster.
answer, is there?
No, there's not. It's a roller coaster. And
Mm,
I think what I can tell you is that there are incredibly good days, there are incredibly bad days.
mm,
The one thing that sustained Stephen and I was communication.
mm.
No matter how challenging the days were, no matter, my son, we did this for like 3 years. He would basically grab every feces
Oh,
and put it
wow.
all over the carpets, all over the walls. And that was just,
Yeah.
one of the
Selection. Yeah.
behaviors.
Yeah.
And so you have to be a team, and you have to work together, and you've got to keep those lines of communication open. And as soon
Yeah.
as you start to shut down, the load becomes heavier and the load
Mm,
becomes bigger. And I think now I went through an incredibly hard time, to the point of where, this is back in 2018, to the point of where I didn't want to be on the planet anymore.
mm.
And in the end, I went and my husband booked me a 3-day trip to the Gold Coast,
Mhm.
and I'd never been anywhere by myself.
Mm.
And I had 3 nights, no children, no pressure, no life, like no,
No
just day-to-day
responsibilities.
life, no
Yeah.
responsibilities. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And I got up and I went for a walk along the beach. And one day I had a cocktail at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was just,
Sound like
and
my girl.
yeah. And that reset for me
Mm.
changed my entire life, because anytime now that I start to feel that feeling, that
Mm.
creeping feeling of, I'm starting to get burned out,
Mm.
I'm starting to feel, I say, right, carers, Stephen, I'm feeling it. I'm going
Mm.
to need a break in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Now, let's work together. I don't need a 7-night holiday in Fiji, although it would be lovely. But I do need 2 nights to myself. Let's please
Mm.
coordinate it. And that position that I was in, where I had suicidal ideology, and it was there every minute of every day, and I was sobbing and sobbing like weeks, and I just couldn't. And even though all of that was
Mm.
there, I was
Mm.
still a robot, and I was still up
Mm.
at 4 o'clock in the morning and feeding my babies and smiling and putting on a show for them. And then I
Mm.
would go into the bathroom and I would lose it. But it taught me for myself where my threshold is,
Yeah.
what I need, and now what my behavior triggers are, to make sure that I get my reset.
Yeah.
And it is so important. And for anybody who is on here, the one thing that I can say to you is, free yourself of the guilt. The
Mm.
moment you start to free yourself of the guilt, you can take it day by day.
Yeah.
So, and what do I mean by that? Okay, it could mean, if you don't get out of your pajamas for 2 days and you don't shower, but the kids are fed and the laundry's a mess and you haven't made the beds, but everybody's still functioning or got food and everybody's still okay. Yeehaw, girl, you
Yeah.
did it. Or yeehaw, man, you did it. It's okay. Relinquish the guilt that you didn't shower and you didn't get out of your PJs. It's
Yeah.
okay. Did you have a bottle of wine on a Tuesday night because life just got too hectic and too much. You
Mm,
did it? Okay. You needed that in that evening to help you wake up tomorrow to feel
mm,
better and feel brighter and be there and be present. So just, it doesn't matter what the scenario is and what your personal circumstances are, please be kind to yourself, and please just let go of that
expectation.
guilt.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
guilt. Catherine,
If it
thank you so
starts,
firstly,
sorry.
thank you so much for your vulnerability. And I guess you verbalizing this and actually saying this happens, this is the reality, makes many parents watching this like a big sigh of relief that yes, I'm feeling those feelings that you've described, and I'm allowed to feel those feelings. Because I find a lot of parents that I work with, honestly, is what you said, you wake up at 4 a.m. and get on with it. They're in this flight fight mode of delivering the best for their children with all the intervention and all the appointments that they need to receive, that they lose themselves within the process, that they just get lost and are floating in this dark cloud and they don't know how to go. And that day after day just puts a really heavy load on themselves. So thank you for just expressing that so they can learn to take that time out for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I've lived that, and I still live it every single day. But
Mm,
I've learned me better.
mm,
Um, and the one thing I was going to say was, if it starts to feel that it's climbing beyond 2 days or 3 days, and it's really starting to feel like the cloud won't leave, then
mm.
make a telehealth appointment and go see a GP. For those who don't know, sage.com.au, SAGE.com.au. It is a paid service, $45, but you
Mm-hmm.
can speak to a doctor and they can assist you. So if you don't feel comfortable to get out of the PJs and go and be in public and wait in the medical office, Sage is really great. It's
Is that for
$45.
national or only
Yeah,
Queensland?
no,
National? Yeah.
national. Yeah,
Wow.
and just make sure that you are taking care of you, because um, I'll use that analogy that we've all heard a
Yeah.
million times, right? You're on the aeroplane.
The oxygen
If those
mask.
masks come
Yeah.
down, who are you supposed to
Mothers
do first? You're supposed
of
to
the
do yourself
children.
first before you do your children. And I know
Yeah.
we've all heard that
I
900 times,
heard it today as well myself.
but at the right point in your life, that will actually click and it will resonate. And I hope it resonates for someone today, because you have to fill your cup. And if it's literally sitting outside with a cup of coffee for right now for 5 minutes, take that time. If you can't
Mm.
get to the gym, if you can't, whatever, like I haven't been able to get to the gym forever,
Mm.
but I still
Mm.
have to find these little pockets of things. And I've just started to make myself a
Dancing.
priority again.
I saw
Yeah.
you dancing again and singing.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah.
only just started that in the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm finding that I'm making that priority again. And it's making me happy, which is lovely.
Yeah. Catherine, that makes me so happy to hear that. And it takes such a lot of strength in a mum, but also a mum of children with special needs, just to do that little bit extra for themselves, just to make them happier in their day. So thank you for your honesty and vulnerability, because it's so rare that or parents express themselves in this way, and it's actually quite refreshing to hear the vulnerability of it all.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm happy to share, and thank you to Catherine to Kathy, I think it is, for your
Kathy,
beautiful
yeah,
message there.
yeah.
And, reach out, I'm here, and I'm more than happy to be an ear if you ever need anything.
You have such I can just, even though I can't see you, Catherine, I can just feel your energy here and the passion and advocacy that you have And in my head, I keep hearing, they're just my babies. I have to do the best that I can for my babies. So you have that belief that they're my babies. I'm going to do everything that I can for them. How did you then start your advocacy journey with supporting other parents and raising these, like Sage, for example, and raising all these wonderful services that parents can access so they could be best versions of themselves, but also for their child to access great services too?
Look, it started for me, it started from a place of fear, to be
Mm.
honest with you. So my partner is 6'4". My children
Very
are
cool.
all going to be 6'5" and beyond. And
How
when
tall
I
are
started to do
you,
my,
Kathrine?
I'm 5'4", 5'3", really.
Hello,
I try
shorty,
and
like me.
climb in a fraction of a centimetre, but I'm about 5'3". Um, but you know, it was the fear of knowing that one of my boys could get out and
Mm.
be 6'6" and 150 kilos and
Wow.
non-verbal,
Mm.
and who's the first thing people are going to do is call the cops,
Yeah.
right? And so I started to do my homework around interactions with law enforcement and
Yes,
realised
tell
that
me
we
about
had
that.
nothing
Mm.
here. So I'm very proud that I am Australia's only, to this day, trainer of law enforcement and first responders to understand the disabled in the field.
Can you talk us about
So,
that? Like, what's the obviously you found the cause and the need for it, but what did you actually do in that, and what training did you encourage the police force to implement?
so it was a very long upskilling process to ensure that I
Mm.
was qualified. I went out to international bodies who had been doing this for already 20 plus years, UK, US, Canada, and sourced every expert that I possibly could, incorporated the disability community here,
Mm.
and we built this incredible bespoke program. And so that I've partnered with New South Wales Police Force since 2019,
Wow.
partnered with Queensland Police since 2020, and now we're working with Victorian Police and Western Australian Police as well.
Wow.
So, look, the work never ceases.
Mm.
It's always there, and my job is when I kiss my boys goodnight every night and I kiss them goodnight, it resets me for the day. It doesn't
Mm.
matter what's going on, and no matter, people need this. I I get emails and phone calls literally on a daily basis where people have experienced things and they feel that they've got nowhere else to turn, and they come to me and I will absolutely support them.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so, and then outside of my work, I think the learnings of different therapies and different services have come through trial and error, through learnings of different other groups. The one thing that I will say is be very selective with your social media groups.
Mm.
If you are finding that there is a toxicity in that group and it's not for you, exit. There are honestly millions of different groups out
Mm.
there specializing in different splinters of disabilities, and
Yeah.
there are uplifting groups. There really are. And the last thing we need is when we're having a rough day and we're seeking advice from a group that's got 20,000 members or 5,000 members, to be bullied and harassed because we've made a choice, or
Bad
we've
choice. The
said
choice for the
something, or
child. Mm.
God forbid we use the wrong terminology or language, like,
Mm.
um, we're all there, we're vulnerable, we're all in the journey together. So if you found the wrong group, babe,
Mm.
exit
Okay.
and go and find
Don't
yourself the
listen.
right group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got this theory that everyone's got a PhD in disability, even though they don't even have a child with a disability. So it's like, don't put out the information without the true accuracy of the source.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's become you know, it's become a really supportive place, social media,
It
for
is,
when you
especially in
find the right
COVID.
groups.
Yeah.
And when you are in those right groups, they can really, really support you. So,
Mm.
but I've been in toxic ones, and the vitriol and the bullying that I've seen and witnessed, we got enough shit to deal
Mm.
with, guys, day to day.
It's true. I know, and you don't need to hear that negativity. So you were talking about you said you implemented these law enforcements in Queensland and New South Wales. What is it specifically that is the training involved?
So we go through things such as victim and perpetrator
Mm-hmm.
scenarios. So we go through things such as what are the physical attributes of certain disabilities, what is
Mm.
stimming, what is
Mm.
echolalia,
Mm-hmm.
what does a meltdown look like in certain age groups, what's Tourette's, what's Huntington's disease look like.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
it's a very broad scope from a physicality point of view, from a cognitive point of view. What can they do, because the laws are different in every state? What laws do they have to abide by, as far as soon as somebody declares disability, what does
Mm.
that mean? What protocols do they have to change? How do they physically restrain someone if they're self-harming or if there is a weapon involved? If a domestic disturbance has been called. So if a child's having a meltdown, and so this happened with two police officers that I trained. They're both detectives. They have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old autistic
Mm.
sons. And their 16-year-old was having a very hard time. They were having a meltdown, put their head through the glass, put hands through, punched dad, the whole works. And someone was walking their dog across the property, heard the commotion, thought it was domestic violence, called the police.
Wow.
Um, and these incidences are treated as domestic violence. They're not
Mm.
treated as a disability.
Mm.
And as we know, with mental health issues dramatically rising throughout COVID, um,
Mm.
and they're completely separate. So mental health conditions are not the same as
No.
disabilities, and they're treated separately also within law enforcement. So I've
Mm.
had to work with the mental health intervention team, as well as the vulnerable persons portfolio, which covers disability and aged care. And so we go through a lot of different things. I show them video footage. We analyse video footage. I bring in people who feel comfortable to stand in front of sometimes 1,000 police officers all in uniform, and they've been traumatized. They've had a terrible interaction, and I bring in from lived experience point of view. So there's lots of different elements that we bring in, and what I've been really grateful for in the last 12 months is that I've now actually been able to flip the script and talk to the disability community. So
That's
I've been
wonderful.
touring the country and doing the disability expos. And it's a really interesting way to explain to people what your rights are
Mm.
as a carer or a provider or an individual with a disability. What are your legal rights if you're stopped by a police officer? What information do you have to provide? And I mean, it gets very, very
It's quite
heavily
complex
involved.
and detailed. Yeah, it
It's
does.
absolutely very complex, but I love what I do. And
You can
again,
just hear it, Kathrine.
every
I can hear you. I can hear how
person,
passionate you are about it. And I'm assuming you have a team behind you supporting you with all of this, yes?
I have various teams at different points. I'm a
Yeah.
charity. I
Yes.
don't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get paid for any of the work that I do in this space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a labor of love. I've been doing it for nearly a decade. And
Yeah.
again, when I kiss my
Yeah.
babies goodnight and I give them a kiss every morning, I put my child's face on the mother that called me
Yeah.
today. And what if that was my child? And
Yeah.
how would I react if that was my child?
Mm-hmm.
And I do that with everybody. And I'm getting better
Yeah.
at sleeping at night. I'm getting better at not carrying the load the way that I've done in the past, but it's hard. It's hard when you get, you know, a 35-year-old autistic man who ran a successful business and owned his own house that was worth $1 million, and people came in and took advantage of him, and it's financial abuse. It's disability financial abuse. I mean, anyway, I don't want to go into scenarios because they can get pretty heavy.
Quite detailed,
Yeah. But
wow,
it's important. It's really important work. And, you know, if I'm I'm regularly on ABC News, or I'm regularly on different places, and I try to advocate for disability human rights. Every opportunity that I can, because our voice needs to resonate. There's a very loud world out there, and we need our space to be seen and to be heard, and to have our children heard.
Absolutely. Wow, I'm just in awe with everything that you're doing, and especially with families with a child with a disability, or even individuals with a disability. Like, you are changing the path to make their lives better and to support their inclusion and participation in society as a whole. So I take my hat off to you, Kathrine. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, look, I'm doing my bit and paving the way for the next person to pass the torch on to, and the fight will never be over.
No, it will never be over. Are you happy to take any questions that anyone may want to ask you?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I'll just wait till people ask questions. But so now, what are your children accessing for services? Are they still the 5 times a week speech therapy? Are they accessing OT as well for their sensory processing?
Yeah, so at the moment we're using a multidisciplinary team just to minimise the amount of therapy that they're doing, because it's a hectic schedule. So they do speech and OT. They do trampoline therapy twice a week, gymnastics, dancing.
That's a lot.
So, yeah, well, I actually own the dancing school, so it's called Therapy and Dance. And so we comprise of OTs, speechies. I have a psychologist, and they're also qualified dance teachers. So,
wow. And that's Queensland based only.
Queensland based, yeah. There are some in New South Wales, all abilities dance schools and things like that. I don't know if they're covered. I'm not sure if they're covered by NDIS. You just have to find something in your area. But there are beautiful dancing schools, all ability dance schools. Yeah, and so we go sailing, we do sailability, and I just love it. The Gold Coast was definitely the right move for my children.
Yeah, that's so good.
AFRID, yes.
So I'll let you answer that.
Okay. It is.
What does ARFID stand for?
So it's avoidance restrictive food intake disorder.
Okay.
So I am still very much on the path. I'm still very much on the journey. We have seen nutritionalists. We have seen dietitians. We had in Sydney a really wonderful speech pathologist who specialised in SOS feeding therapy.
Yeah.
So some
many
OTs
speech
do it.
therapists do that. Many speech therapists do SOS. I'm actually bringing on a feeding specialist in a few months called Julia Orensini from KidSpot in, I don't know exactly which suburb, but I think it's the eastern suburbs. Don't quote me on that. She's completed SOS, and even Bambini Health, they've completed the SOS program too.
It's very difficult to find someone up here in Queensland that is has that qual, and if they do, they're very heavily in demand. But just for the beautiful mum who asked, SOS, so yeah, SOS feeding therapists is something to look at. Look, as far as my trials and errors, there've been many, and so I will give him his safe foods, and on a separate plate nearby, I will introduce something new. It always gets rejected, but I'm still always putting something in front of him. We do songs. My son is quite musical. So the song Watermelon, for instance, by Justine Clark, it goes, watermelon, watermelon, I
I
like
love
you like
to
watermelon.
watermelon.
And so we would sit there with the video clip of Justine Clark playing that song because he loved it, with cut up watermelon. And in one 45-minute session, we got him touching it, we got him putting it to his lips, and we got him to lick it. Now, for him, massive achievement. And they're the wins that we celebrate every day. Yeah, man, Joshy, high five. And it's all that big, big praise when he does those things. So he remembers the good feeling of that.
Especially with food.
The one thing, and you may have a strong opinion about this, but the one thing that works for my boys is technology
Yeah.
distraction. So if they've got their iPad and they're watching something that they love, Peppa Pig, whatever it might be, Wiggles or whatever that they love, I can sneak in a Chobani yogurt while he's distracted. Again, not ideal because
Not
it's
ideal.
technology and he's not concentrating on the food. But you know what? At severe AFRID, you pick your battles and your wars, right? At the end of the day, if I can get a Chobani yogurt pouch into him, yeehaw.
Is this the
It's got protein,
pesticide?
it's got all it's good stuff in there.
Is this Mr. Pesticide?
Yeah, Mr. Pastizzi.
Yeah.
So you
So
need to
yeah,
do.
achieving that is huge. You got to do exactly right, Kathy. You got to do what you need to do. Exactly right. And I
Yeah,
had
and
this
you know your
conversation with Julia about this because I had a client that would only eat when the iPad is available to him. And I was navigating, well, is it a learnt behavior through uh, the iPad or is it something else? And she actually said it might not even be a behavior, it might be something else. So Julia's coming on in a few months' time to discuss feeding and strategies we can help children too. So this one should be a really interesting talk.
the one thing too that I do, as I mentioned earlier,
Mm,
is I supplement my children daily with
mm,
different vitamins. So the one that I import from the United States is from iHerb, and it's a children's. I'll have to find it for you and put it up there, but it's a children's one aged from 4 to 12 years of age. It's an orange and mango liquid.
mhm,
My children will only have liquid. They won't have gummies, gummy bears or tablets or anything like that. So anything liquid I can get into them, and it gives them all of their vitamins that they need.
mhm,
Now, with the severe AFRID, the other thing that you might want to check next time your little one has a blood test is get them to check their iron levels. Because sometimes girls are obviously different to boys, but sometimes the iron levels may change, and that may affect their ability to want to try or eat new foods.
mhm,
And that's as simple as getting ferro liquid, FERRO, ferro liquid from the chemist, and it comes in a great little bowl. Again, it's a 5 ml little syringe, and they're good, and it just gives them that iron supplement that they need.
mhm.
I hope that was helpful.
Kathy, how did you find that?
Um, Through we had blood tests and through our GP.
I mean, sorry, I was asking Kathy, how did she find what
Oh,
information you gave her? Was it helpful? And I guess she can contact you directly too, can't she, Kathrine?
yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Instagram. You can reach out to me at my website. My daughter is anemic at the moment, and we're waiting for an iron infusion. Yeah, okay. That'll change her life, that iron infusion. You'll have a very different little girl, Kathy, after that. I'm glad. I'm really glad that was
Okay,
helpful.
that's good. Um, this was really informative. Thank you so much, Kathrine, for this wonderful evening and enjoying a glass of wine with me. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to ask Kathrine before we wrap up for the evening?
No problem, Kathy. Happy to help.
We'll just wait for some more comments. But Kathrine, I am just in awe of everything that you have discussed tonight. And all I can say is keep persevering and keep advocating, because there are many people just getting inspiration from you and hope and carving their own path for their children to help them out as well. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on Wine with Weta. I'm more than
Thank
happy to
you.
join anytime. We can do a
We might
safety
even do another one.
conversation.
Yeah.
We can happy to talk, and share, because the more that we share, someone like Kathy tonight really
Yep.
took away some things, and that's what it's about. Yeah, it's about supporting each other.
Even Sage, I've never heard of Sage.com, and that's something I would definitely recommend to parents when they're feeling with those thoughts and in that mindset. Just contact and speak about it and give yourself the benefit of the doubt. But it's
Oh, look, I
okay.
use it for my kids. I use it when I
Mm,
know that they need antibiotics, but I
mm,
can't sit in a weight room for 2.5 hours with my
no.
profoundly disabled son, who's going to get very upset and cause
Mm,
a scene. And so I'm happy to pay the $45. And for some people that's doable, and some people that's not.
yeah.
But it's always a wonderful resource to have in the back of your mind.
Real hedge, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so
Smile
much.
for me.
Sorry?
I said, smile for me.
Yeah. Thank you
Taking a
so much.
selfie.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, definitely, I'd love to bring you back on again. We should probably pitch it to the audience with what specific topic they'd like to discuss. I like the feeding one. Maybe when Julia comes on, we can bring you as a guest speaker, or even discussing more about the law enforcement elements you've achieved too.
Yeah, I think one thing that really resonates with a lot of parents is
Yeah,
safety protocols within the house, safety protocols if you decide to go on holidays,
yeah, I love that
or just
one.
going
Yeah,
out in public settings. And there's lots of different strategies that I
I
can
like that.
absolutely
So
impart.
let's
But
tee it up before the summer break. Before parents book their holidays, at least they're well equipped with what strategies they can implement before they go away.
absolutely.
That sounds
Thank
good.
you so much. And
Thank you
thank you
so
to
much.
everyone who's joined.
And I really appreciate the time you've given me today, and enjoying a lovely glass with Weeda, a glass of wine with Weeda. And I look forward to future conversations and all the magic that you sprinkle to all the followers that I've watched today. So thank you, Kathrine.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely evening, darling. You take care. Bye, everyone.
Take
Thank you
care,
so much
everyone.
for participating, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.